one of the founders of Leopard. And this session is just really fun. We encourage you all to ask questions, and we have a bunch, but feel free to start throwing things in the chat as you think of them. And you can also say a quick hi as these two do their introductions. Dan, you want to go first since you got here first? Quick, non-humble. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm super glad to be here. Hope I can be somewhat helpful. I'm Dan. I'm VP of Product Engineering at a company called Abridge. At Abridge, we record, transcribe, and summarize medical conversations between doctors, patients, all to reduce clinical burnout. We are the now leading kind of deployment of AI in healthcare, and we've been going through some fun hypergrowth. I've been in the industry for about 20 years, been leading engineering teams at growth stage venture-backed businesses for the last 10 plus. So here, Clockwise, Handshake, Lyft, company I started and ran for 6 years before we sold it. And then I started my career at Salesforce way back in the day, before it got a lot bigger than it is now. As an engineer there, I studied computer science in school. I'm here in San Francisco. I'm at our office in a phone booth, which is why you got the gray felt wall. But I live here in the city too. That's me.
Amazing. Manju, you want to go?
Hi, everyone. So glad to be
Non-humble.
here.
Sorry, the non-humble.
Okay.
you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for having me here, Lexi. And I see some familiar faces as well. That's amazing. So I am an engineering executive who has been building and scaling engineering teams and organizations for over 25 plus years. And at both large Fortune 100 companies like HPE, NetApp, and HP, as well as at startups like Delphix. I was VP of Engineering at HPE, leading the development of primary storage products. So I started my career as a rocket scientist in the Indian Space Research Organization and building control systems, sensors, and payloads for rockets and satellites. So started as a hardware engineer when Dan said computer science. So I did electronics and communication. And then from there, came to the US with my husband and a few-month-old daughter in 97. So I've been here a while, probably lived here in the US longer than in India, where my formative years, though. So very much an immigrant trying to survive here. But I should say I've been thriving so far. So from a rocket scientist to embedded systems and then operating systems, compute, networking, storage, virtualization products for mission critical and business critical solutions. So that's what I get to do when you're at companies like HPE, NetApp, and all, right? So that was amazing. Then when HP bought this company called Opsware, so that's where I moved into an application layer. So single pane of glass management of data centers, automation, and data management and security products. So I've essentially been in systems infrastructure space all these years after coming to the US. So that is 6 nines availability, reliability, stability, performance, all of that stuff, right? So, and I live in the Bay Area. I have two amazing daughters. My older one got married, and we had the celebration recently, so that was great. The younger one's going into medical school. So thinking about, so I'm in the Bay Area, by the way. So, and about the organizations, I think to say something about what I did as an engineer, but there's also much that we do as leaders that we forget to share. And for that I think is much more fulfilling and fills me up with joy. So at these organizations, I think what I enjoyed the most and developed my unique skills in was as that transformational change catalyst who kind of focused on continuously improving things, never satisfied with the status quo, but to kind of look for efficiency and productivity and better, faster outcomes. That is, higher quality, lower cost, all of those, right? So I became known as that operational excellence leader. So, but at the same time, creating a safe, inclusive, and innovative environment so that we can empower the brilliant engineers that I get to work with here and to bring their strengths together to create these amazing products. So it's not just about delivering products, it's about nurturing people, their potential, and building the right culture that do at scale. So these days I do a lot of coaching and developing those talented engineers. So if I can be of help anytime, reach out.
I love it. Wait, before we finish, how big was the engineering team under you in your last role, Manju?
I was directly managing about 750 odd people, but I was heading the entire engineering operation. So that was 1,500 to 2,000 people. So that was great.
Thanks, you forgot
A
to
lot of
mention.
fun.
And I know that. That was 750, right?
Yes.
And 750, not 785. Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. No big deal.
I,
Just
I had a quick
massive.
question for the
Yeah.
audience that we have here. Amazing women. I'm proud to see all of you. How many of you are engineers versus managers? And I can see senior engineers. Just had a question about that. The answers to tune it to those, right? Maybe a show of
You
hands. How many
right in
of
the
you are
chat.
managers? Um, yeah. So we have, okay,
There's
everybody
more
is an individual.
managers here. Yeah, yeah, there
There
we
are?
go.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Yep. Yep.
And then
Okay.
everybody else is a senior engineer. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
Love it. This is this is so exciting. I love it. We just have a great panelists today. Okay, I'm gonna get into the questions. I have around 4 questions. I'm gonna ask a question to each of you just to provide a little bit more context on what you do and how we think it might apply to this group from a career development standpoint. Then I have my little like hot takes question, and then we're gonna get into questions from the audience. So okay. Dan, so you have been, spending the last few years building AI native products, obviously, in startups, right? Clockwise, and then of course Abridge, which is like, I love that is that true now? You all are the #1 AI in healthcare. Is that what you said? That was, I
Or like
mean, I
the
guess,
broadest deployment of it.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, I love it. That's
Wow.
like incredible.
Nice.
It's like unbelievable, right? So my question to you is just as AI is becoming a core part of more products, right? Every software product, every software company is integrating AI. What should in the Leopard community be doing now to stay ahead?
Yeah. I think there's really kind of two pillars to this, maybe, right? So one is how do you stay on top of the advancements that are happening in terms of developer tooling, right? Whether it's when ChatGPT came out 2.5 years ago and starting to use that to uh, you know, Windsurf and Cursor to Claude Code. I mean, I feel like there was kind of a big inflection point last week, even with or maybe now 2 weeks ago with the release of Claude 4. Like,
Or yeah.
use these tools, develop intuition about what works for you, like have taste about what is happening in the industry. I think that's really important. And you're going to see more, I think, interviews. You're going to see more companies be discriminating about like, are we hiring engineers who are at the forefront of this tooling and developing opinions on how it should be used. So that's one big piece of it. And I think the second piece is use those tools to build products that use AI. And there's a lot of silliness happening in the industry right now, as there always is when there's hype waves. But there are meaningful things that can be done kind of from a product sense that couldn't be done before. Or even if it could be done before, it's like good experimentation to, start developing intuition on these models are good for that. This use case works pretty well over in Gemini. This use case works pretty well with Claude. This use case works pretty well with OpenAI. Um, develop a sense of, in general, here's what I can expect from performance in terms of like tokens in and tokens out. Um, here's where like you're gonna see, LLMs making shit up more often. Here's where it's gonna feel like actually this is a pretty good use case. Like, I think you want to basically build strong intuition and taste around both the tools themselves and what products can be built with them. Yeah.
I
Nice.
love it. Quick follow-up question on this because this is the second time I've heard taste this week in terms of hiring. So I just want to recap it so that we share because I think this is a really good quote to go share after. Is it what you were saying about the right tool for the job? Is it the right output from the AI? Is it both? Is there something else? Can you define it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's both. I think and every company, as always, is going to evaluate for different things in their interview process. So unfortunately, there's no like magic wand or silver bullet. But I think, we're starting to get more specific in our interview process around, just tell us kind of how you're thinking about the world. What tools are you using? Why? What have you built? Why did you build that versus that? And like, what did you learn from it? So I think it's really both.
Totally. Emily, did you have a quick follow-up question that you wanted to add to this? And then we'll
I
keep going.
do, thank you. And I'm sorry I can't come on video. I'm actually having audio and video issues, so I'm trying to minimize that. But
It
thanks to
sounds fine.
everyone. I appreciate
Yeah.
it. So my follow-up is to the part about like using the tools and thinking about like maybe building meaningful portfolio projects. I found that really interesting because it sounded to me as if the suggestion is like use existing models from Hugging Face or from maybe some of the bigger competitors just to, as you suggested, figure out what they're good at or what model excels at others. And I think that caught me by surprise because I think the way that I've been approaching this I guess AI phase of software engineering is to think about like the architecture that might be useful, like the architectural skills that might be useful for developing these types of products, whether that's like needing to do additional fine tuning training on top of models in either like an Airflow or prefect flow, or like even if it's like just learning about the different types of databases that might help with personalization, like learning those types of skills is what seemed to me that might be relevant. But I'm not sure if that's the case. And I think you probably have a better sense of what is actually valuable. And I was hoping I could get your perspective on that.
Yeah. No, it's a smart question. And thanks for asking. I think here's what I would say. Like real world experience, regardless of kind of the niche or subgenre of it, I think is going to be really valuable to you. And so some of that is going to be more infrastructure focused. So some of that might be like, I have played around with a bunch of different databases for RAG, and here are my opinions about those things, right? Like, I think that's a great example. Or, you know, I could get this far by using, GPT or Chat GPT or sorry, 4.0 as a model, but I could get this much further if I started fine tuning it. And then this is the like eval process I went for understanding if my fine tunes were working well. So like I think by virtue of building projects, you kind of like to make it work, you have to get into the details, and you're not going to be able to cover everything. But I think being able to articulate here's like where I went deep and here's what I learned when I went deep, I think is going to be valuable. Hopefully that makes sense.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Good question. Anyone have quick questions before we move on?
So I don't know if this is going to be too business oriented, Dan, but I am curious when you think of what Abridge does. There's so many products out there that will transcribe Zoom calls or they'll transcribe. Is there anything? Sorry, I just can't help but ask.
No?
What about the medical doctor is specific compared? So sorry, I have to throw
No,
that
I
out there
think
because
that's
I'm
a
also
good
just
question.
thinking about
Yeah.
because I've used so many products that I look at it afterwards that have transcribed an interview or transcribed a meeting, and it's like that's not what happened. So
Yeah,
I'm really
totally.
intrigued by products that actually capture
Yeah.
that. So
And so I appreciate the question. There's a lot of pretty poor transcription software out there. Like Zoom is a pretty good example. The transcripts out of Zoom are and the summaries out of Zoom are bad. Um, I think there's a couple things going on at Abridge. First, it's a company by doctors for doctors. Our CEO is a cardiologist. Like he gets the point. The point is doctors are horribly overworked, and a huge piece of it is we have to write these stupid notes that are incredibly important, but like eat into nights, eat into weekend time. And our job is not to just be like, here's an audio transcript, go give it to GPT and like summarize, please. Like pretty complicated set of orchestration and workflow that involve many models and outputs text into sections that fit neatly into clinicians' workflows and eventually end up in the EHR or the electronic health record or
Right.
electronic medical record. And like what we see, we have this Love Stories channel in Slack where our clinicians and people who are close to the front lines of customers will share things. And like it's one of the best parts of the job. Like an example, just to say it out loud, just from today. This is going to take a second to read, so apologies, but I swear I'm not making this up. Here's what it says. Abridge has been the single greatest development in my career. No amount of wellness activities or coaching can accomplish the reduction in burnout I have experienced from this software. It improves my relationships with my parents, and it's my patients because I do not resent them for giving a disorganized history or adding additional complaints and questions at the end of their visit, which I know I do all the time. It has given me time to exercise during my lunch break. It's made my days feel manageable in a way they never did before in my career. It has increased my own personal income. Instead of doing the unpaid labor of managing patient complaints over my chart to save time, I just add visit slots and schedule them and can address their concerns with less effort and be able to bill for my time. I no longer have the feeling that I can't keep doing this long term that I have had most of my career until the past 6 months. Like, that was just not possible before the advancements of the last 2.5 years. And it's like certainly one of the best parts of the job. Yeah. On the other hand, we get plenty of complaints too. We're not perfect, but like that's the exciting piece. And it like clearly rises above the, kind of mediocre transcription software.
That's amazing. That story, like that's so good. Any other immediate AI questions? I want to move on to kind of introducing Manju. But I mean, we could talk about this for an hour, right? I told you that at the beginning of the stand. Like even just understanding how these products work. Catherine, did we get you the answer you're looking for? Like, are you asking like kind of in the weeds more, like the product? How does it work?
Well, but I guess it just, is there anything, it sounds, sorry, whether there was anything about the medical industry that was distinct from these other channels or
Yeah, there's lots of distincts. Yeah, it's a great question. So like to start, a big piece of what we do is audio speech recognition, right? Where we transcribe audio into text. In medicine, there's obviously a lot of technical terms that happen, and your off-the-shelf speech models won't pick them up with the current like appropriate error rates. They're gonna error out and get words wrong way more often. So we have an in-house model for speech recognition, and then we have a bunch of, like I said, it's a complicated set of kind of workflows and orchestrations and lots of models that happen in many stages to actually just produce a final note. But yes, a lot of that is either modeling in-house where we've distilled kind of like a large language model and some prompting on top of that large language model into an in-house model with our in-house scientists. And then there's a lot of prompt engineering too that's very specific to, this is a woman well visit versus pediatrics well visit. And like what do clinicians in those specialties expect as a result? Yeah. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, it is. And I guess it's the medical aspect of it that makes, why can't a regular meeting be transcribed a little better? But I guess you're just saying there's going to be hope coming down the road. Thanks.
Well, it's also because like, I think a lot of companies that do transcription are lazy about it. Like you just, here's a transcript, make a summary, please. And if you do it in one shot, it's not going to be very good. So like you have to kind of orchestrate it.
Okay, thank you.
That's super helpful. Okay, let's get into Manju's. I mean, again, we could, I have questions for days on that, but okay, let's switch over. Manju, okay, so yeah, this was in my question. That's why I was mentioning it in your intro, but in your last role, you led an org of over 700 engineers building enterprise storage products at HP, right, which is enterprise. Let's say like kind of a similar question to Dan, right? What should engineers be focusing on if they want to stay relevant and grow inside of larger orgs? And like, also with this AI piece, do you feel like that is different for larger orgs, or is it kind of the same as what Dan's saying? Because I know, there's different rules, what tools you're allowed to use, et cetera. It's kind of a two-part.
Yeah, I think I have some points to add to what Dan had said. I agree with what he said. It applies to both large and medium size or small companies as well. So when I think about what I hire and promote engineers and leaders for, it's their values, behaviors, and mindset, right? Not just the achievements. So the technical excellence part, it's a foundation. But above that because that's how you will show up for the team, for the business, and your future self as well, right? So large or medium sized skills that I look for, I have a list of those that I consider. And for promotions, as well as when I have those kind of performance conversations as well, I bring all of these up. So one is, I look for somebody who's curious, humble, and with that growth mindset. It's growth mindset is maybe an overused term, but that is so critical. It's that hunger and ability to learn fast, to listen to others, take full ownership, and then take initiative also, right? So people those who don't need to be told what to do, who just want to improve how things are done. Then the other part is about collaboration, that teamwork aspect that we all look at during interviews as well, right? So collaboration and communication. Are you able to share your ideas openly and clearly and bring things together to the right conclusion? And are you able to help others grow? I see a lot of senior engineering leaders here. So that's going to be very, very important. How do you help others grow, right? And then during COVID, what we learned is how important resilience is. And then we understood the value of that emotional intelligence as well. So during COVID, and then now with AI also in the mix, this becomes even more critical. Adding to that comes that adaptability, right? There's so much change, the sheer rapid volume of change. They talk about how in the next couple of years, you will have as much change as what happened in the last 50 years. That we thought was so fast, but then wait for what's coming, right? So that is where that adaptability also becomes key along with your integrity and your drive. So when it comes to, so that's, I've talked about the product part of it, the technical excellence, of course. Then there's also the people leadership skills at every level and the process part also. How do you influence? How do you peer mentor? How do you act as the glue that brings things together? This is the human aspect, even in the presence of AI taking over everything, that's going to be critical and that's going to be unique as well. So, great engineers don't just code, they lead, they connect, and elevate the system. And the other part I also look for is that bias for action. That's what gets you there. There are a lot of people who can talk, but then who's walking the talk and then taking action? And even if you fail fast, that's okay, right? And you learn and keep moving forward. Now, on the AI question, so if you're an engineer in a large organization and you want to stay relevant, grow, and stand out, your job is no longer just to ship clean code. It is to solve high value problems that matter to the business. So we talked about how earlier, we can use AI to speed things up as an assistant. All of that is great. But it can now be used for much more powerful levers than we are used to. So how do we do that, right? So we have to leverage AI, not just to automate the low level work, gain insights faster and focus your creativity on higher value, but then use it. No, that's the multiplier usage. But also you have to think about in terms of business outcomes, not just code outputs. As engineers, we tend to focus on the code outputs. That time is shifting. I think we have to think about that. So, building that product muscle is important, not just the infrastructure skills that we talked about, because those are the things that are going to be commoditized. We have to learn to use that. But then how do you level up? Now, prompt engineering, we hear about that, human in the loop, system design, then failure mode thinking, right? So how do you now detect hallucination? Those are important. And then, of course, to measure the outcomes. I can tell you, every engineering leader is going to ask you, okay, so how did you make this better? Or they'll say, go make it better. But how do you show whether you're making it better? Those kinds of thinking you have to bring in. And the other part is you have to take more calculated risks. So because we are at that inflection point, we have to do more of that. Another thing is, we have product managers in our organizations, but the ratio right now of product managers to engineers has been pretty high. When I listen to a lot of thought leaders, and I agree with them, this ratio is going to change because there's going to be need for more product managers who can prototype and bring ideas forward quickly. So many of you engineers who want to move into that space and want to kind of create quickly, bring that added value, count on this ratio reducing. So if you will learn to think that way, that's going to be very, very important. So when talking about AI, there are two mindsets that I've seen. So one is, yes, AI is here, it's inevitable. Okay, let me figure out how to learn, how to use this. I will, essentially kind of going with the flow and staying under the radar. And there's the other kind of engineers and product managers that they're so excited about it and say, see, now with this, I'm able to dance example of that doctor who was using it so happily, right? So, oh, I can make my life much easier. I'm able to do this and that. I don't need to depend on anybody for these. Who do you think is going to succeed, right? So that's the mindset part of it that's going to be so important, that where the adaptability comes in. So are you finding use cases where AI can drive business value? Because as engineers, you do know it. And then are you prioritizing the MVPs the right way? Are you managing the executive expectations? Because many of them are throwing things down and saying, I want to see this much improvement. How do you communicate where it's practical, where it's not, where the challenges are, right? And then also that speaking value, in terms of business outcomes again. So you want to be the person who is known as, okay, the like the SME role, right? How do you think we should use AI here? You should be the one they come to ask for that. So focus on the use case more than the hype. Where can I remove maybe 80% of repetitive tasks? Where is the product bottleneck, which AI can accelerate? And internal and external usage of all of these, right? So the traditional thinking where how can I make things more efficient to what outcome does the user want? And what part could I change using AI, right? So, so be the engineers who are shaping the roadmap, not just shipping it. So if I were to make suggestions to you on what to do, look for where product gaps are seen that you can step into. What AI idea have you seen that PMs are not advocating for, where you do see that value? Because the PMs are also kind of trying to learn. They're excited about it, so at least many of them are. But where do you think you can change the game with that input? I see a lot of engineers who are able to do that. Usually they think this is not my lane, it's their lane, and they may not bring that up, especially in larger organizations. But don't wait for that. I would bring those kinds of value, have those conversations, and do more of it. And somebody had asked a question earlier: should I do this? How do I go ahead, build and deploy, and try out some of those features? No excuses. You have to do that, and that is where you learn and stay ahead, right? To be that SME that people come to ask about: does this make sense? And the leaders will watch and see. So how do you evaluate those models? How do you, become, another thing is I can see I was talking to several CTOs and, maybe Glow and all the others also suggest in smaller companies too and larger ones, there are these AI committees. That's one of the terms that I've seen and heard because everybody is trying to learn what's the best way to apply it. And in each organization, it is not just in engineering, though, it's in product management, in field, other value chain groups as well. They all have representatives because everywhere it can be used. And when it's the champions that are sent to that committee. It gives you access, it gives you exposure, it gives you the visibility that you need to grow and get to new roles. So think about all those kinds of opportunities and make sure you are in those kind of committees and try to be there, even if it's a rotation or so. Being that champion gives you that visibility. And then you get the chance to provide feedback, see if it's failing, bring things back to your teams and organizations. So this is where, as engineers, earlier we were very focused on the engineering groups and we collaborate with others also, but this brings all of those other parallel organizations also together faster. And how do you make the most of it so that you're building your network and acting as that multiplier? So that's what I would suggest on AI.
I love it. Wait, I wanted to circle back to something you said before this about the product managers and the ratio. Dan, did you have anything? Because Dan runs product engineering specifically, which is what we've always heard in Leopard is that people want they want both in one. Curious your
Right.
thoughts, Dan.
I mean, product engineering is just our term for like I lead our team of full stack and mobile engineers, right? Like we have product managers. I'm not trying to replace product managers. We build our teams, small pods of engineering manager, product manager, designer, and engineers. So like I think that there's a possibility that, some of this tooling opens up for CMs to like fix small bugs, like maybe instead of writing that linear ticket or that Jira ticket, I'll just fix the bug. Um, I'm not 100% sure on that yet, but like I
Yeah.
think we're headed that way. Yeah, I don't know. I think Manju got it, like lots of points right, but that one for sure.
Totally.
So that, yeah, my point there is not that, so it's about engineers now taking on the role of product manager as well, right? That way, because that ratio is going to reduce, many of you who are interested in that kind of a role can take that on and be so I have worked with many engineers who like the initial ideation and then bringing the first steps together and then the closing and the final finishing touches and getting those really tied together in a bow, enterprise quality. Many don't want to do that. Though many of them will thrive in that kind of a role of bringing the idea, making that happen, moving faster. So you'll have more of those within the engineering teams itself who can bring out these ideas faster. They'll be known as those product leaders, product owners, and product managers. That's what I meant.
Super interesting. Again, could be an entire huge discussion on just this exact topic. I will say I keep waiting for the PM roles to spike in our data because I agree with you. I feel like this is coming and people are talking about it that it's coming. And I think you're
Yeah.
spot on. What we are seeing is a spike, and we'll get into this another day, but solutions and forward deploy. That's the one we
Yeah.
saw.
Yes. So at this time, I can totally see that. At this time, it's about what we already have. Where do we experiment? Where do we suggest more of that usage? But people with very crisp and clear ideas and unique ideas, that's going to be needed now.
Totally. We had some questions in the chat. I also have my two questions. Maybe we should go back up to Sumitha's question and then move on to the other two. So Sumitha's question, to the point about seeking AI curiosity, I guess we should keep with this, or interest in recent advancements. What would you, well, this applies for both of you. What would you recommend for candidates in the market who want to stand out? And how do you evaluate these signals?
Do you want to go first?
About no, go ahead. I'm reading that. So seeking AI curiosity or interest who want to stand out. Go ahead, Dan. I've not been interviewing engineers in a very, very long time. Frankly, it's my my managers who've been doing that, or my directors. So, but yeah, please go ahead.
Sure, yeah. First, just wanted to say, I think, Catherine, sorry for interrupting you when you were like clarifying your question. I had a coffee right before this and I'm going a little too fast. Apologies for that. Second, nice to see you again, Sumitha. It's been a minute since our lift days. Thanks for the question. I would say, here's what I think stands out.
Stand up. Mm-hmm.
Like in order, right? There's like, what's the best thing that you could talk about as a candidate? You could talk about how you deployed an AI product at a company that you worked for that had some scale, right? And the more scale, the better. But like, that's like, okay, great. That's a great signal. What's good past that? There's a path you could go down that's like, I took heavy advantage of AI tooling to greatly increase my productivity. And here's like what I learned from that. That's one path you could go down. Or you could go down the path of, and I did that in a like in my work environment where I got paid to do this. Another path you could go down is, here's this cool thing I built on my own time because I was so passionate about learning, and here's what I learned. I think what doesn't work very well, like we get candidates all the time who, when we say like, hey, why aren't you interested in a bridge? They're like, I don't know. It seems like it's doing well and AI is cool. It's like, well, yes. I mean, I appreciate you saying those things, but like connect the dots for me. Like show me you've tried something.
Yeah.
So hopefully that helps.
Yeah.
Right. And I read the question. So what I would add is so one is, how did you bring value to the business in what you did? That being able to quantify it would be very useful. It could be that you saved time. It could be also that I was a champion in the organization or my team, and I learned these, tried these out, and then I made presentations to the larger organization so they could adopt it. Many a time, what I've also seen is it's the tools and the QA engineers who are adopting the fastest, and they are able to innovate so fast in leveraging that. And they build these neat tools, and others are able to use it and get faster also. How did you contribute to those, right? So it's internal usage, and did you, even if it didn't get productized, if you were able to prototype and show some value in it, this is how I learned. You're showing your curiosity there and that you are able to implement and take things forward. Or if you're able to articulate why you thought it was a good idea and that in my spare time I did these, or not spare time, I took the time to invest and learn and do these, right? Those, it all shows what are managers looking for. They're looking for somebody with all the values that I talked about earlier. That's what you're representing. And how can those values be able to be applied to their organizations, how they're going to connect it?
It's a really good answer, both of you. Thank you. A really quick follow-up question on this. I know we're like 20 minutes left, trying to be efficient. We had a discussion in the last engineering leaders panel where it used to be like around the time when boot camps came out that side projects were a big thing. It was like if you had a side project, you were supposed to put it on your resume. And then the trend flipped the other way where they said, don't talk about your side projects, talk about what you've done at work. But we have a lot of folks who are full-time job searching right now. They don't have the opportunity to put something new on their resume. How do you both feel about side projects specifically with AI? Is that a good sign or anything to mention on that?
Go ahead.
I think it's obviously tricky. I would say an impressive side project is great.
Exactly. Yeah. A dinky. That was the problem. Is they
A
were
dinky, mediocre side project where it's like, yeah, cool, you did a hello world, like neat, but like
right.
that is a negative, I would say.
Totally.
Like
Yeah.
that actually hurts you.
Agreed. Thanks for that. Yeah, I appreciate it.
If when there is a gap for whatever reason, right? That's so common these days. If you are showing that you use that time to learn something new, more than a certification, if you have taken some action to do that, it shouldn't be a hello world or so, but I'm just saying something substantial where you show the value and you're able to articulate that. I would value that, right? So I'm not in a hiring seat right now, but for my organization, I would definitely look for that. But it has to be of value, and you should be able to articulate the value. And it doesn't even have to be, I was working in systems infrastructure, but what I played around with AI, it could be something else too. It's okay. There are, yeah. So that is my thought. I would say in this climate, it's a good thing.
Great. Raju, do you want to, we have some questions in the chat, but I also want to get to yours. Do you want to,
I want to add to it. Recently, I was in
perfect.
Seattle Data AI and Governance meetup. I met a lot of people who were contributing to pro bono. Like they were not full-time, they lost their jobs and they were contributing pro bono, like supporting somebody's climate initiative, applying LLMs and models.
Yes. Yep. I'm seeing a lot of that. Yes.
So though if not being in a full-time is absolutely okay, but if there are opportunities to volunteer and contribute to a cause, big or small, definitely adds up.
I love that.
Right.
Thanks for adding.
I've been guiding. Yeah, very true. I've been guiding a lot of new college grads or even kids who want to do internship. We are not able to get those anymore, right? I'm gathering them together and for them to come up with some ideas, maybe get some of you leaders to hear, okay, this is something that needs to be solved. These kids are excited. They're making it happen. I would love to see such initiative in resumes coming in.
I think that's the takeaway, right? You're showing initiative to do something, not just like here's some random thing that I threw together and don't really know what it is or why. And that's how some of the projects were back in the day, the side projects. It was like, what is this thing? It's just a thing. So, okay, wait, we have so many questions. I still want to get to my two, and then keep throwing your questions in the chat. If we run over on time, I'll send it to our leaders after and we'll get you a sync answer. So, I just think these two are important for our audience. So, okay, what one piece of advice each of you would give to this group to help them succeed in interviews or advance their engineering careers? Let's say maybe unintuitive or non-cliche. Not that I think you would answer in cliches, but could be either interviewing or career.
Please go first.
Okay, so I think we have to be real, right? This is one of the toughest job markets we have seen in years. Even excellent engineers are struggling to get interviews, let alone offers. So first, if you're on that board, know that it's not a reflection of your worth or talent. You're not alone, but don't give up, right? There is a right role waiting for you as well. So for me, my non-intuitive point or advice that I had is maybe I should set a little bit of context as well, right? So in a male-dominated, highly technical field like storage infrastructure and all that, I've often felt that the pressure to prove myself by doing more, taking tough assignments, staying heads down, all of that is, I believe that my results would speak for itself, but they don't. They really don't usually. So when I started advocating for myself with blunt and direct kind of communication, that was my style. That same style, which men use, I faced what's called the double bind. Right? So if I stayed quiet and agreeable, I was invisible. If I spoke up, I risked being labeled too aggressive or not a team player. So being aware of these biases and this double bind, I realized that to earn respect and to stay authentic and grounded, I needed more than just technical skill. It took resilience, perseverance, and persistence to keep showing up, refining my approach, and maintaining my true and authentic voice without getting frustrated or giving up. So the takeaway here is to set aside, my ego and to focus relentlessly on getting the right outcomes. So develop the resilience to keep being yourself in the face of bias. Practice telling your impact story, not just your technical story, so your contributions become impossible to ignore. And set aside your ego to focus on outcomes that matter. So be that leader who is known as the one with the right outcomes, not just the one who's always right. That would be my advice. Keep being yourself and show up in the face of bias.
Wonderful.
And you don't have to change who you are to grow, but you do need to build the endurance to navigate them and the skill to communicate your value. Clarity, care, less ego. These are lessons that I've learned the hard way. Took me many years. So I just wanted to share that.
Love it. Dan?
Yeah, that's great. Hard to beat that. I think those are super important and real. Maybe I'll give just like a tactical piece of advice in the interview process itself. I see candidates make this mistake pretty often, and it always bums me out. Like it feels unstrategic. The mistake is this. The mistake is getting like asking questions of the company that make you seem like you are being too kind of like pushy early on. Like an easy example of this is at some point in the interview process, you're going to want to know like what's the vacation policy, right? Like don't ask that up front. Wait until the end. Like ask after you get the offer, right? Like you, and I think a lot of people make the mistake of they get like too attached to the, oh man, I got to know all the things up front to know if I even want this job. Go get the offer. Go get the offer. It's going to make your life so much easier to negotiate against other companies. It's going to make you more confident. And then you can get into the like, is this the right company for me? But you got to make the company want you first. And like, yeah, it's like pretty surprising how often you'll see people up front come in real hot. So it's like, okay, cool. Like you
It's like
have
the
some needs.
single biggest issue in our community because so many people just want to make sure it's a good place and it's gonna, you know,
100%.
not be awful. And yet we're like, even though your instinct, you're trying to do something good for yourself, it's not
100%.
coming out the way that you want.
And
Yeah.
there's important questions you should be asking up front and early in the process of
Yeah.
like, is this a place that I am going to like to work at? But focus it on the work and the colleagues and like what we're trying to do in the world together as a team, not on benefits to me immediately. Save
Yeah.
that for later.
Yeah.
I think that's really good. I like that you said unstrategic. I think that's a perfect word. It's not, and sometimes people don't ask the right question to the right person. So if you're
Right.
talking
Yeah.
HR, benefits is a good thing to ask. If you're talking
Yes.
about, and like if you're talking to Dan or Manju, that's not a good question. It's not a good use of time.
I'm happy to talk about it anytime. I'm
Yeah.
happy to talk about it,
But
especially after I like am giving an offer to somebody because I want somebody
Totally.
to know, like,
yeah.
yes, we have a vacation policy and we like people to take
Yeah.
vacation. That's an important piece of how we're running the company. But like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyways,
Strategic.
I'll
It's
No. I'm so glad you said it. It's better when it doesn't come
that
from
is
me. Raji, yeah, did you have something to add to that?
Right. So like Dan said, information that's on the website, please don't ask. That is I tell any junior engineers looking out for a job, please do not ask the question if it is there on the website. That puts you on the back foot right away. So it means you had no interest looking up.
It makes like complete sense. I want to get into my last question, and then there's like more in the chat. It's just the hot take on software engineering, interviews, career growth, anything, like just hot take. Give it to us, both of you.
Dan, go ahead.
I don't know that I've got like a super hot take. I guess maybe I'll say this. I'll say like there's a lot of bullshit happening in the industry as there always is. There's a lot of hype in the AI cycle right now. And as you're thinking about companies, as you're thinking about evaluating opportunities, like I would just say this doesn't feel that hot to me, but like focus on where there's value, focus on where there's value being created and like where there are products or tools being made that could not have been made before. Like that feels so much more interesting to me than, you know, like just doing something silly on top of an LLM because you can. You know, like there's too much of that in the industry and would love to kind of like focus on real tech, focus on real value being created and real like outcomes, positive outcomes for you.
Love it. Manju?
Yeah, I wanted to talk. So because there's so many folks attending interviews, and this is an advice and a help that I try to give to all that I'm talking to, connecting and coaching. It's interviews are as much about your mindset as your skills and how you appear there, right? So for that, when you walk into an interview, even whether it's your dream job and this is the one you want, and or just any other opportunity that you're looking at, your mindset is everything. So thinking of that entire conversation not as a test to pass, that is where I think we get kind of stuck, right? Or a performance that you need to nail perfectly or so. Think of it as building a relationship, building a connection, having a conversation. Yeah, I can tell you with the FANG company model and all, it's a star model. It has to be in 2 minutes and 3 seconds. All of those are adding to the tension. It's not necessary. That's not how you work, really. But it may give you one indication about whether the person is succinct or so. But we are thinking on the feet, it's okay. But that has spoiled and taken away those conversational aspects where you learn more about people. But in all of that, in that short window, your goal should be to connect, build trust, and show up as your authentic self, right? The important thing also is now I've think about it. If you are not your empowered and full self, it will show when you have your conversation. And it's a hard thing, it's easy for me to give that advice. I would struggle with the same as well because you're thinking, I want to look, I want to do really well. But go as someone who is already grounded and knows your value. who believes in your own value, that, skills that you bring in and the experience that you bring to the table. Don't forget that. If you're without a job right now or are unhappy and it's just a situation you're in, it doesn't reflect on you in any way. So, and this is not about arrogance or any of that, right? It's about bringing that quiet confidence, being grounded in preparation and self-awareness, right? So, how do you think about in having that conversation with the other person as though he or she is a potential teammate, right? And you're not somebody begging for approval or afraid of rejection. This is something, that mindset part of it, I have these conversations with folks. So I just wanted to bring that up here. Let go of the scarcity mindset. It comes too easily because our brain is trying to protect us for something, right? But be aware and, tutor it. Go with that abundant mindset and have that conversation. And remember that it's a two-way street and you're interviewing them as well. So bring your questions, like Dan said, what not to bring and what to bring. Bring your energy, bring your engagement, and show them how you think and how you collaborate and how you'll fit into their culture. Be yourself. Be curious, be open, be resilient. Show that.
I love this. So we had a couple questions. We have some more coming in. So I was sending them to you all to answer async. The thing I wanted to do, in case people are on a hard stop quickly, is this is my favorite part. If everybody can write something they learned in the chat, including I'm going to write to Dan if you want to write, Manju if you want to write, let's write something we learned, and then we can get into those last questions and just try to like answer people's questions. And if somebody has to jump, we'll go async. But this is my favorite part. I'm going to just write one right now. Let's all go for a couple minutes and then we'll get back to the questions. This has been super fun, but it's really, really fun to see. So.
I have something about resilience. It is from my lived experience. I'm a cancer survivor. And when I talk about resilience, it's about, remembering that whatever situation you're in, it is temporary. We forget that when we are going through a major challenge. It is temporary and this too shall pass, right? With that mindset, when we move forward, and then when you take it one day at a time, anybody looking for a job, think about it as you're taking things one day at a time. This too shall pass.
Manju,
And
you should like record meditations. Like your voice is so soothing, and you deliver like I'm like this feels like it's like a professional recording when you say this stuff. I'm like, okay, we'll do this after. That was my first failed startup was recording. So okay, studio
okay.
and
Yep.
record affirmations for the leopard community. Everyone can turn on their morning Manju. We need it. I'm gonna grab all
Yeah.
in the chat. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you both. This has been amazing. I know we have questions. I want to like find the questions and make sure I didn't miss them. If you want to just pick off any as we go, if people have to drop, they drop. If you ask, I'm gonna just do my best to. If you have a question, if you have to drop and you have a question, DM me. If you want to stay around for a few more minutes and ask, otherwise, let's all just like say thank you. And this has been amazing. Dan, like I want to let you stay on the chat or like let you stay here, but it might be more efficient to send you to the chat. Is that okay? I'm actually going to
Yeah,
make that call.
totally.
I will send you both to the chat because otherwise it gets chaotic for me to manage the flow of the questions. I want to, but I can't. So thank you
What do
both
you
so
want us to do? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I sent you the questions that we didn't get to. If you can write async in the chat, I'm going to share them through in the Slack community. And I'm also going to give us a summary of everything we covered and pull some quotes out and share it with everybody. So thank you all so much.
Thank you all. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Loved it. As always, favorite format ever. Thanks everybody for coming. Gonna hop. I'm just gonna grab the chat before we hop. Oh, we get it through Zoom. Love it. Jem, if you can send me the chat too, so I had to make sure I don't miss anything. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Great.
Cool.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks all.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. And Lexi for the opportunity. Yeah,
Oh, of
this is
course.
fun.
Feel free to reach out if I can be helpful, everybody. See ya.